Secretary Darcy, General Bostic, the entire country has been awakened by the lead in the water crisis in Flint, Michigan. There was something of a similar crisis here, and of course the Corps produces drinking water for this capital, for the federal complex, for several adjoining counties in Virginia. And D.C. Water, in particular, purchases almost 3/4 of its water from the aqueduct, and of course, we drink that water here. Now, does the Corps operate any other municipal drinking or water treatment in the country?
We do not.
Only in the nation's capital. This is a holdover from before the city had its own home rule, and of course it has D.C. Water now. D.C. Water is an expert agency in delivering water. That is not your core expertise, is it?
No.
No. The Secretary says no. In addition, as I understand it, if there are capital improvements, you are not funded by this Congress in order to engage in those improvements because you cannot borrow, you cannot bond. Isn't that the case?
That's correct.
Of course, D.C. Water can borrow and bond and is doing a great many things at the moment. How do you test for lead in the water for the water supply that comes to this Congress and throughout this region?
How do we test in the water supply in Washington, D.C.?
To make sure that there's no lead in the water, General Bostic.
Right. We know that there's no lead in the water source, which is the Potomac River. And the water leaving the two Washington aqueducts, water treatment plants, is tested once a month for lead. Now, lead can leach into the pipes going from the pipes that are coming from the house or the buildings to where the source of the water is, but our current indication is that we've tested the water coming out of the aqueduct.
But if it leaches from the pipes, which is of course the problem here and all across the United States, and everybody better look and ask what is the substance put into the water to counteract that lead leaching. Is that substance being routinely put into the water here? Today, the wrong substance was being put in the water by the Corps in the early 2000s when the nation's capital had a similar crisis. What's the substance?
The substance is orthophosphate, and it interacts with the interior surface of a lead pipe, and it provides a protective layer in the pipe to ensure that there's no lead that's going to leach. So
I want to alert, Mr. Chairman, other members to inquire in their own districts what is the substance. The Corps put the wrong substance in the water, and there was lead in the water. 42,000 children had to be tested. It was a genuine crisis. We had to use water bottles just like we're having to do in Flint, Michigan. So members are well advised to go home and at least inquire what is the substance, how often is it tested. Let me ask you about another. You do several projects here as a matter of routine. I want to thank you for agreeing to work in the Spring Valley community here to test groundwater in that community while allowing the neighborhood to make use of one of its parks. Has that groundwater testing started, and what are you looking for? What do you think you may find in the groundwater?
I'll have to follow up on the groundwater. I was not tracking that specific question, but we can follow up on it.
Well, you went to a great deal you put a great deal of energy into building a way to test the groundwater, and I'd ask you within 30 days to get back to the chairman, and I'm sure he would give to me what action the Corps plans about what you are doing to test this groundwater, which was your intention, and what you intend to do, what you're looking for, and what you intend to do about it. And finally, let me ask you about the levee the levee that you were building, you had a problem with the contractor. Boy, I just saw a drawing of everything on the mall being underground except the Washington Monument because of climate change. But at least in the near term, we have this levee to protect the National Mall and nearby neighborhoods, but there have been lengthy delays. We are told that the levee system evaluation report, this is supposed to be the final piece of writing, is due to FEMA this spring, and that the levee, therefore, will be approved. Lieutenant General Bostic and Secretary Darcy, is the Army on track to get this federal report done, and over with by this spring so that you can assure the Congress that, in fact, this levee to control flooding on the mall has been taken care of?
Yes, we'll have that report completed into FEMA this spring.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Welcome our new member of our committee from Illinois, Mr. Bost.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all,